Small towns often feel untouchable where people believe true danger only exists far beyond their borders. Neighbors share routines, trust familiar faces, and rarely imagine violence breaking their everyday peace. For years, this quiet community lived without fear, believing serious crime could never happen here. That illusion shattered during a cold winter night when silence was replaced by unimaginable horror. A late emergency call reported disturbing circumstances inside a residence. No one expected. Responding officers arrived assuming confusion or panic, not a scene that would change everything. Inside, they discovered evidence of deliberate violence carried out with chilling control and intent. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting the attacker moved freely and without resistance. Investigators immediately realized this crime was personal, calculated, and deeply unsettling. By morning, the town awoke to fear, questions, and a mystery that would refuse simple answers. News spread rapidly as residents struggled to understand how such brutality could occur so close to home. Families locked doors, checked windows, and questioned whether safety had ever truly existed there. Investigators secured the area, knowing the smallest detail could determine the direction of the case. Detectives noted the absence of chaos, suggesting the attacker remained calm, controlled, and intentional. Early evidence hinted this was not random but a crime driven by familiarity or specific purpose. Community members gathered in silence, realizing their shared sense of security had been permanently broken. Authorities confirmed few details, increasing anxiety and allowing fear to fill the information gap. Social media speculation began immediately, creating theories long before facts were fully known. Innocent names circulated publicly, complicating the investigation and deepening community tension behind closed doors. Detectives prepared for a long case that would test patience and resolve. Investigators began reconstructing the final hours, hoping timelines would reveal unseen movements or intent. Every phone record, message, and digital trace was examined for patterns pointing toward a hidden suspect. Witnesses were interviewed repeatedly as detectives searched for contradictions buried in casual memories. The crime scene revealed precision, suggesting planning rather than impulse or uncontrolled violence. Detectives questioned whether the attacker had visited the location before without raising suspicion. Authorities avoided releasing details, fearing misinformation could compromise the fragile investigation. Candlelight vigils formed as grief spread through the town, uniting strangers in shared disbelief. Families demanded answers while investigators worked quietly under growing national attention. Media coverage intensified, transforming a local tragedy into a case watched across the country. What began as one violent night slowly evolved into an unsolved mystery with no clear end in sight. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage frame by frame, hoping a forgotten movement might expose the truth. Neighbors recalled strange sounds, but none could confirm whether danger had passed. Quietly that night, investigators mapped the residence carefully, studying entry points, exits, and sightlines inside the home. The absence of defensive evidence raised unsettling questions about timing, trust, and sudden violence. Law enforcement described the attack as targeted, though the meaning remained deliberately unexplained. Fear deepened as officials admitted no suspect had been identified during the earliest investigation stage. Students altered routines, avoiding nighttime travel and questioning once familiar surroundings. Parents across the country watched closely, imagining the same nightmare happening to their own children. Each passing day without answers increased pressure on investigators and fueled public speculation. What remained undeniable was that someone responsible was still free somewhere beyond the crime scene. Investigators canvassed nearby homes, searching for overlooked witnesses who might recall forgotten details. Digital records, phone data, and access logs were examined to reconstruct movements before dawn arrived. Forensic teams worked patiently, knowing one microscopic trace could change the entire direction. 44 officials urged calm while quietly expanding patrols across campus streets and residential zones. Rumors spread faster than facts, forcing authorities to correct misinformation repeatedly. Media attention intensified, turning the once quiet town into a national headline overnight. Students questioned whether familiarity had blinded them to risks hiding in plain sight. Detectives acknowledged the case required precision, patience, and relentless focus. Every unanswered question deepened the urgency to restore safety and uncover the truth. Surveillance footage from nearby streets was reviewed frame by frame for suspicious movement clues. Investigators traced timelines carefully, comparing digital pings with witness recollections. Each interview added fragments, yet the full picture remained frustratingly incomplete. The victims' routines were mapped to identify patterns, vulnerabilities, and unexpected deviations. Community vigils formed as grief united strangers under candlelight and shared silence. Law enforcement balanced transparency with restraint to protect the integrity of evidence. Analysts reviewed similar cases nationwide, searching for behavioral or procedural parallels. The absence of clear motive complicated profiling efforts, and strategic direction pressure mounted as days passed without arrests or definitive public answers. Authorities reaffirmed commitment to justice, emphasizing patience, accuracy, and resolve. Detectives coordinated quietly across departments to avoid leaks that could compromise progress. Media coverage intensified, amplifying speculation while verified facts remained tightly controlled. Families endured relentless waiting, measuring time in headlines, court filings, and brief updates. Digital forensics teams analyzed messages, photos, and backups, searching for overlooked connections. Behavioral experts debated whether planning suggested obsession, familiarity, or calculated escalation. Patrol presence increased temporarily to restore confidence without creating unnecessary alarm. Tip lines overflowed, requiring rapid triage to separate rumor, coincidence, and credible leads. Every recovered detail was logged, reviewed, cross-checked, and preserved for future proceedings. Prosecutors monitored developments, ensuring standards were met before any charges were considered. The investigation pressed forward methodically, knowing haste could irreparably damage justice. Investigators balanced public reassurance with secrecy, knowing disclosure could alter suspect behavior. Analysts reconstructed timelines, minute by minute, testing movements against verified digital records. Surveillance reviews expanded outward, mapping routes, lighting gaps, and late-night traffic patterns. Campus officials issued guidance urging caution while attempting to preserve academic continuity. Community meetings reflected grief, fear, and determination to support affected families together. Evidence custody protocols were reinforced to withstand future scrutiny from defense challenges. Quiet breakthroughs occurred away from cameras through persistence, repetition, and careful review. Suspect profiles narrowed gradually as contradictions eliminated. Early theories and assumptions. Each step forward required corroboration, ensuring conclusions rested on facts, not pressure. By winter, the case demanded patience, precision, and resolve from everyone pursuing accountability. Investigators began cross-referencing past incidents for potential links or overlooked patterns in town. Digital logs were scrutinized to identify communications around critical times. Next one, keep filtering on it. Witness interviews were revisited multiple times to clarify events that seemed contradictory. Initially, forensic teams meticulously rechecked evidence, ensuring every trace, print, or sample was accounted. Community vigilance remained high as parents and students adjusted routines to maintain personal safety. Detectives examined the surrounding neighborhood, seeking unusual activity or vehicles seen during night. Analysts compared findings against national databases to spot matches with similar unresolved cases. Authorities balanced transparency with security to prevent sensitive details from being prematurely released. Social media monitoring helped track rumors, highlight credible tips, and filter out misleading information. Investigators understood that persistence, attention to detail, and careful documentation were crucial to success. Officers re-examined the timeline of events, searching for any overlooked inconsistencies or critical gaps. Forensic experts analyzed every item collected, cross-referencing with evidence from similar national cases. Witness statements were scrutinized multiple times to ensure accuracy and eliminate contradictory details. Authorities coordinated across agencies to maintain consistency and integrity. Throughout the investigation, local residents remained alert, adjusting routines while following official updates and safety recommendations. Detectives reconstructed movements within the residence to understand the perpetrator's precise methodology. Digital communications, including calls, texts, and emails, were carefully examined for potential leads. Social media activity was monitored to distinguish credible tips from speculation and rumors spreading online. Every recovered piece of evidence was logged, verified, and analyzed to maintain a complete investigative chain. Investigators knew that diligence, patience, and methodical work were essential to solving the complex case. Detectives meticulously analyzed all evidence, hoping patterns would emerge revealing the attacker's identity. Digital and physical traces were compared with previous unsolved cases for potential similarities. Witness interviews were re-examined to reconcile minor discrepancies and improve timeline accuracy. Investigators coordinated with multiple agencies to strengthen the overall strategy of the case. Community members remained vigilant while continuing daily routines under heightened caution. Authorities examined the residence thoroughly, paying attention to entry points, exits, and sightlines. Forensic analysts reprocessed samples, ensuring nothing critical was overlooked during initial examination. Patrols increased temporarily to restore public confidence, while investigators focused on evidence. Media updates were monitored to ensure accurate information reached the community without compromising. Detectives understood that precision, persistence, and attention to detail were crucial to solving the crime. Investigators reviewed all digital communications, analyzing patterns and anomalies for potential leads. Surveillance footage was scrutinized meticulously to detect any unusual movement or unidentified figures. Witnesses were re-interviewed multiple times to confirm statements and reconcile timeline inconsistencies. Authorities coordinated cross-departmentally to maximize resources while preserving investigative integrity. Families and residents monitored updates closely, adjusting routines to ensure safety within the community. Detectives mapped the residents in detail, studying every room, hallway, and potential access point. Forensic teams re-examined collected samples, ensuring each trace was properly logged and analyzed. Patrol presence was increased temporarily to reassure the public, while investigators focused on leads. Social media was monitored carefully to separate misinformation from tips that could aid the investigation. Investigators recognized that patience, diligence, and methodical work were essential to achieving justice. Detectives began cross-referencing prior local incidents to determine if any patterns suggested connections. Digital logs, phone records, and online activity were analyzed to pinpoint potential suspicious behavior. Witnesses were re-interviewed repeatedly to clarify the timeline and verify earlier statements accurately. Forensic experts reviewed evidence multiple times, ensuring no trace or sample was overlooked or mishandled. Community members adjusted routines while authorities urged vigilance without spreading unnecessary fear. Investigators examined the neighborhood carefully, noting unusual activity or vehicles seen during the night. Analysts compared findings with national databases seeking links to similar unsolved criminal cases. Law enforcement balanced transparency with security to prevent sensitive investigative information from leaking. Social media was monitored to extract credible tips and dismiss rumors that could mislead the investigation. Detectives understood that thorough documentation, precision, and patience were critical to uncovering truth. Officers meticulously traced the final hours of the victims to reconstruct every movement and interaction. Surveillance footage was analyzed frame by frame, searching for subtle clues overlooked initially. Witnesses were interviewed to clarify inconsistencies and fill gaps in the timeline of events. Forensic teams double-checked all evidence, ensuring accuracy and integrity for future investigative use. Community members remained cautious, altering routines while staying informed through official updates. Detectives examined the residents in detail, noting entry points, sightlines, and potential escape routes. Analysts compared evidence with similar cases nationwide to identify potential links or behavioral patterns. Authorities maintained a careful balance between transparency and protecting sensitive investigative information. Social media activity was monitored to filter credible leads from rumors or false information circulating. Investigators understood that diligence, patience, and systematic work were vital to solving this complex case. Detectives coordinated across multiple departments to pool resources and ensure thorough investigative coverage. Forensic specialists re-examined all evidence meticulously, knowing every detail could prove crucial to the case. Witnesses were interviewed repeatedly to reconcile minor contradictions and strengthen timeline accuracy. Analysts compared the current investigation with similar unsolved cases to identify potential patterns. Community members stayed vigilant, adjusting routines while remaining attentive to official safety updates. Authorities mapped the residents thoroughly, examining entrances, exits, and potential points of vulnerability. Digital communications, including texts and emails, were analyzed for hidden clues or suspicious activity. Patrols were temporarily increased to reassure the public while detectives focused on evidence processing. Media coverage was monitored closely to ensure accurate information reached the community without jeopardy. Investigators emphasized patience, methodical documentation, and precision to bring justice to the victims. Detectives analyzed all digital footprints to identify any anomalies that could indicate the perpetrator's presence. Surveillance footage was reviewed repeatedly to detect subtle movements or unusual activity in the area. Witness statements were re-evaluated to resolve contradictions and fill gaps in the reconstructed timeline. Forensic teams double-checked every sample, ensuring nothing significant had been overlooked during collection. The community remained alert, carefully monitoring surroundings while maintaining everyday routines cautiously. Authorities examined the residence in detail, considering entrances, sightlines, and all possible access points. Analysts cross-referenced findings with national databases seeking connections to similar unsolved cases. Investigators balanced transparency with confidentiality to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Social media monitoring helped filter credible tips from misinformation circulating among concerned residents. Detectives recognized that precision, methodical work, and relentless patience were essential to solving the crime. Investigators expanded their search to surrounding areas, noting any unusual activity or suspicious vehicles. Digital logs from phones, computers, and online accounts were analyzed for hidden connections or anomalies. Witnesses were re-interviewed to confirm statements and fill in gaps, strengthening the reconstructed timeline. Forensic specialists meticulously rechecked all evidence to ensure nothing critical had been overlooked. Community members stayed vigilant while continuing daily routines. Following official safety recommendations, authorities mapped the residence in detail, considering all potential entrances, exits, and line-of-sight angles. Analysts compared local findings with national case databases to detect patterns or connections to other crimes. Law enforcement maintained a careful balance between transparency and confidentiality to preserve investigative integrity. Social media activity was monitored closely to separate credible tips from rumors or misleading information. Detectives recognized that patience, diligence, and methodical documentation were essential to solving the complex case. Detectives carefully re-examined all physical and digital evidence, seeking overlooked clues or patterns. Surveillance footage was scrutinized frame by frame to identify subtle movements or suspicious behavior. Witnesses were re-interviewed to clarify inconsistencies and confirm the precise sequence of events. Forensic teams double-checked every collected sample to ensure nothing critical was missed or mishandled. Community members remained alert, adjusting routines while staying informed through official law enforcement updates. Investigators mapped the residence in full detail, considering entrances, exits, and lines of sight carefully. Analysts compared findings with national case databases to detect parallels or links to unresolved cases. Authorities maintained transparency while safeguarding sensitive investigative details to preserve case integrity. Social media was monitored to filter credible tips from false or misleading information circulating publicly. Detectives emphasized that persistence, methodical work, and careful documentation were crucial to achieving justice. Investigators coordinated with multiple departments to ensure resources were maximized for the ongoing case. Forensic specialists re-examined all evidence meticulously, knowing every detail could prove crucial to the investigation. Witnesses were interviewed multiple times to reconcile contradictions and reinforce timeline accuracy. Analysts compared current findings with unresolved cases nationwide to detect potential behavioral patterns. Residents remained cautious, continuing daily routines while staying updated through official law enforcement channels. Authorities mapped the residence comprehensively, noting every entry, exit, and potential point of vulnerability. Digital communications, including calls, emails, and messages, were analyzed for hidden or suspicious connections. Patrols were temporarily increased to reassure the public while investigators focused on analyzing collected evidence. Media coverage was monitored closely to ensure accurate reporting without compromising the integrity of the investigation. Detectives emphasized diligence, systematic documentation, and patience as critical components to achieving justice. Detectives carefully reviewed all evidence, focusing on overlooked details that could reveal critical clues. Surveillance footage was analyzed repeatedly to detect subtle movements or unusual activity in the vicinity. Witnesses were re-interviewed to reconcile conflicting statements and confirm the exact sequence of events. Forensic teams ensured every sample was accurately documented and preserved for future analysis or review. Community members remained vigilant, modifying routines while staying informed through official updates. Investigators mapped the residence in detail, noting all entrances, exits, and potential line of sight vulnerabilities. Analysts cross-referenced findings with national databases to detect links to other unresolved criminal cases. Law enforcement balanced transparency with confidentiality to maintain public trust and protect the investigation. Social media was monitored closely to separate credible tips from rumors or misinformation circulating online. Detectives emphasized that methodical work, persistence, and careful documentation were essential to achieving justice. Investigators expanded surveillance around the neighborhood, noting any unusual activity or suspicious movement. Digital forensics teams examined metadata, timestamps, and communication logs for hidden patterns or links. Witnesses were re-interviewed to clarify inconsistencies and confirm the reconstructed sequence of events. Forensic specialists double-checked all collected samples to ensure nothing critical had been overlooked. Community members stayed vigilant while continuing daily routines, following official safety recommendations. Authorities mapped the residence in precise detail, considering entrances, exits, and lines of sight. Carefully, analysts compared local findings with national databases to identify patterns or connections to unresolved cases. Law enforcement maintained transparency while protecting sensitive investigative details to preserve integrity. Social media was monitored to filter credible tips from false or misleading information circulating online. Detectives emphasized patience, diligence, and methodical documentation as essential to solving the complex case. Detectives revisited all evidence, understanding that even small overlooked details could reveal the perpetrator. Surveillance footage was analyzed meticulously to identify subtle movements or suspicious activity. Nearby witnesses were re-interviewed to reconcile statements and verify the exact sequence of events thoroughly. Forensic teams double-checked every sample to ensure nothing critical had been missed or mishandled. Community members remained alert, adjusting routines while staying informed through official updates. Investigators mapped the residence comprehensively, noting all entrances, exits, and potential lines of sight. Analysts cross-referenced findings with national case databases to detect links to unresolved criminal incidents. Law enforcement maintained transparency while protecting sensitive investigative details to preserve case integrity. Social media activity was monitored to separate credible tips from rumors or misleading information circulating. Detectives emphasized that patience, methodical work, and careful documentation were critical to achieving justice. Investigators coordinated across multiple agencies to ensure resources were maximized for thorough coverage. Forensic specialists meticulously re-examined all evidence, understanding that each detail could prove crucial. Witnesses were interviewed repeatedly to reconcile contradictions and reinforce timeline accuracy. Analysts compared findings with unresolved cases nationwide to detect potential behavioral patterns. Residents remained cautious, continuing daily routines while staying informed through official law enforcement updates. Authorities mapped the residence comprehensively, noting every entry, exit, and potential vulnerability. Digital communications, including calls, emails, and texts, were scrutinized for suspicious or hidden connections. Patrols were temporarily increased to reassure the public, while investigators focused on analyzing collected evidence. Media coverage was monitored to ensure accurate reporting without compromising the integrity of the investigation. Detectives emphasized diligence, systematic documentation, and patience as essential components to achieving justice. Detectives carefully reviewed all evidence, focusing on overlooked details that could reveal critical clues. Surveillance footage was analyzed repeatedly to detect subtle movements or unusual activity in the area. Witnesses were re-interviewed to reconcile conflicting statements and confirm the precise sequence of events. Forensic teams ensured every sample was accurately documented and preserved for future analysis or review. Community members remained vigilant, modifying routines while staying informed through official updates. Investigators mapped the residence in detail, noting all entrances, exits, and potential line-of-sight vulnerabilities. Analysts cross-referenced findings with national databases to detect links to other unresolved criminal cases. Law enforcement balanced transparency with confidentiality to maintain
systematic
public
documentation,
trust and
patience.
protect
This
the
is how we achieve
investigation.
justice.
Social media was monitored closely to separate credible tips from rumors or misinformation circulating online. Detectives emphasized that persistence, methodical work, and careful documentation were essential to achieving justice.